Today's juicy lore is the tangled web of Lolth the Spider Queen. My name is Kiki, this is Beauty and the Beholder. Every week we're just gonna hang out and put on some makeup while we talk about D&D lore. If you thought Shar was petty, girl, Lolth is on another level. If you haven't yet watched my other videos on Shar and Saloon, I highly recommend checking those out after this one. Let's get into it. Lolth wasn't always this cruel, chaotic, evil spider goddess that we know of today. Her origin story takes place before the Dawn War. Before Lolth, there was Araushnee. Araushnee was part of the original elven pantheon, alongside Corellon, Llywelyn, and Seanin Moonbow. She's an OG. In this role, she was the goddess of fate, destiny, artisans, and weaving. Like, actual weaving. Like making tapestries and all that good stuff. She was also Corellon Llywelyn's consort. She was this boo thing, and she was living a pretty bougie lifestyle. Her man is literally god of the elves, and the head honcho of this elven pantheon, the 𝕲𝖎𝖈. Araushnee and Corellon had 3 children together: 𝕮𝖆𝖈, goddess of beauty, dance, and moonlight; 𝕮𝖆𝖈, god of thieves; and 𝕮𝖆𝖈, goddess of vigilance, grief, and war. As you can probably guess, each of them are affected in different ways by the actions Araushnee Lolth decide to take, which we'll get into. I have to be honest, I thought I had a plan with my makeup, but I don't think I do. Now, Araushnee was known to be highly creative, and I mean, of course, she was the goddess of weaving and artisans. Like, if she wasn't, that'd be a little weird. She was revered for her skill in weaving, and she had a dark sense of humor. She was known as like a funny, silly, goofy girl. She's said to have had a dark sense of humor that would even bring Corellon to tears of laughter. The 3 of them, Corellon, Araushnee, and Seanin, they were just having fun, you know, being these elven gods and goddesses, and they were just getting up to all sorts of things while they, you know, oversaw the entire elven race. Since Araushnee was the goddess of weaving, she was in charge of weaving the fates and destinies of these elves. Over time, though, Araushnee began to grow a little bit of resentment towards Corellon. Though Corellon was adored by the elves and he held all the power, Araushnee kind of saw this as a weakness. She thought that she could do a better job and that she would be a more disciplined leader. She thought Corellon was too weak and too passive to truly lead the elves. And as a girl boss that she was, you know, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, she wanted to take the throne. She was like, I could do a better job. Which, like, fair, I get it. I've made a huge mistake. Now, for what's coming next, the exact timeline and order of events is unclear. It says it's been lost to time and the Feywild, so there's no finite documentation of any of this, right? But we do know of a few key events that led to Lolth's transformation. To set the scene, the Dawn War had begun. And honestly, the Dawn War is like enough lore for a totally separate video on its own. In summary, the Dawn War was like this huge conflict between the primordials and the gods. They literally were fighting everywhere, like the astral plane, the Shadowfell. It was a war that spanned like different planes of existence, so pretty big. It's important to include because this period of time really contributed, I think, to Araushnee finally taking action. We're gonna stick with this for now. At this point, what do we know? She's had a weaver, she's married to Corey, but something's missing. Cue Lucky by Britney Spears. Araushnee wanted more than just being a lesser deity. The 𝕲𝖎𝖈 wasn't enough for her. She was getting bored. We already know how she feels about Corellon ruling. You know, she thinks somebody else could do a better job. And this whole Dawn War thing, I mean, like, deities, they're fighting left and right, and this chaos really sets the stage for her to finally make a move. And by moves, I mean her infamous betrayals. The first betrayal of Araushnee took place in cahoots with 𝕮𝖆𝖈, the brutal, bloodthirsty orc god. Total opposite to Araushnee, Lolth, who is more manipulative and calculating. 2 different ends of the spectrum when it comes to evil. Wait, I'm jumping the gun. Araushnee's not like totally evil yet. Anyway, Corellon had asked 𝕮𝖆𝖈 to meet with him because during this time, you know, lots of fighting is always going on in the Forgotten Realms. And orcs and elves, they were they're at it, you know, they're nonstop, just like, they've never gotten along. Corellon wanted to meet with Grumsh in order to negotiate a peace treaty, basically. And he was not worried about this at all. Like, he was like, I'm the god of the elves. Like, obviously, why should he be? As he said, he is the god of the elves. He wasn't worried whatsoever. He had his cool magical sword, 𝕲𝖆𝖕. He was just very confident. And here's where it gets juicy. Before the fight, Araushnee warded this beautiful, silken, like intricate sheath covering for Corellon's scabbard. She wove magic into it. Protective magic, as Corellon thought. It was actually destructive, traitorous, petty magic. The magic that she wove into it would cause the weapon to instantly shatter during battle. So Grumsh is like able to beat Corellon down because obviously once he's in battle, he can no longer rely on his weapon thanks to the evil magic. And Grumsh is like finally able to like beat him down. All of a sudden though, who swoops in? 𝕲𝖕𝖕 𝕬𝖑𝖊𝖗. She comes in. 𝕲𝖕𝖕 swoops in and saves the day, and she's like, kill him, my lord. She tells Corellon to like finish the job after she helps him back up. So 𝕲𝖕𝖕 𝕬𝖑𝖊𝖗 basically saves his ass. He gets back home, and Corellon still doesn't know that it was Araushnee who sabotaged him. Araushnee has to be like, oh my god, what happened, babe? Internally, she's like, oh, this stupid orc. He is good for nothing. My plan did not work. Araushnee needs somebody else to do the job. So one day she comes across Malar. He's pretty good at fighting. He is the Faerûnian like deity of the hunt, beasts, basically like primal bloodthirstiness. She sees him and she's like, perfect. She gets him to attack Corellon, which also fails. Corellon literally just like chases him away. And Araushene's like, okay, it's gonna take a little bit more effort to kill my husband. So she gathers a group of gods that are all enemies of the 𝕲𝖕𝖕. And she knows that this group, they're not really good enough to officially take down and get rid of the 𝕲𝖕𝖕, but she's fine with that. She kind of wants to use them as a distraction, honestly. She knows that they're just gonna fail. She plans to get the cursed scabbard back to Corellon. She also ensured that any of 𝕮𝖆𝖃's arrows would hit Corellon instead, so she could literally use her own daughter as a scapegoat for murder. Before Araushnee is able to actually pull this off, guess who finds out? 𝕲𝖕𝖕 𝕬𝖑𝖊𝖗. She gets wind and she calls Araushnee out. Unlucky for her though, with the help of Veyron, the two of them trap 𝕲𝖕𝖕 into a prison. You know, like a magical prison. So they can keep her away from all this happening. While 𝕲𝖕𝖕's locked away, they make sure that 𝕮𝖆𝖃 has everything that she needs, all the cursed items set in place. And they also make sure that she is stationed near Corellon for the battle. While the arrow plan doesn't end up working, the plan that Araushnee had for the anti-𝕲𝖕𝖕 army to fail, that ends up happening as planned. And we're now on Araushnee's fourth attempt to kill Corellon. As one like last attempt during this like battle, Araushnee gets her hands on poison crafted by 𝕮𝖆𝖃. This poison is like meant for her followers for like protection and during the hunt, stuff like that. But Araushnee takes it and she knows it's poison. She gives it to Corellon and tells him that it's water of Elysium with healing properties. So kind, so thoughtful. Corellon drinks the poison, and guess who swoops in to save the day? Again, 𝕲𝖕𝖕 𝕬𝖑𝖊𝖗. She comes in, she broke out of that prison somehow, I don't know how. Well, I mean, she's a goddess, so she figured it out. And she ends up merging with like two other goddesses. I'm probably gonna butcher their names, but 𝕮𝖆𝖃 and ■ Selenil. They become one big, all-powerful triune goddess, the goddess Angharad. Oh, hello! Hi, honey lady. Come say hello. She says hi. So all three of them, they all form together, and their magic is able to save Corellon once again, happy ending, except for our girl. After this, a trial is held to decide the fate of Araushnee, Veyron, and Ylistray as well. All three of them were exiled from the Seldarine. However, Ylistray, which we'll talk about in another video, she goes willingly. She's positive vibes. So basically, Corellon's like whole family unit is cast out. Except for Vondra, she does not get involved, but she ends up becoming the goddess of vigilance, grief, and war. This poor girl. Corellon could not bring himself to finish Araushnee. He just couldn't do it, even though she was like trying to get rid of him this whole time. He just couldn't do it. Maybe that's why he's the head of the elven pantheon. Instead of killing Araushnee, he transforms her into this cross between a giant spider and Tanar'ri, which is a type of chaotic, evil, abyssal demon. Exiled to the abyss as punishment, Araushnee ends up taking over the 66th layer of the abyss, which is the demon web pits. Araushnee is finally Lolth. In addition to Lolth, she is also known as Lolth. She goes through like a lot of different phases and identities, but typically Lolth and Lolth are the main ones. She also like takes on some other people's identities at some point. That's a lot of spicy nicknames, which I love. The Queen of Spiders, the Demon Queen of the Abyss, the Demon Queen of Spiders, Queen of the Drow, Lady of Chaos, Mistress of Lies, Flesh Carver, and my personal favorite, Spider Bitch. I am just playing with my makeup like a 5-year-old playing with her mom's makeup. As for her personality, I think her origin story gives you a lot to gain insight from, but she is a ruthless goddess. She is always scheming. Lolth, what are you up to today? Scheming again? She's manipulative and just always up to no good. She thrives on betrayal. Think of your worst coworker. That's Lolth. She loves to pit the drow against each other. And she does a lot of things just out of her own amusement. Her followers live in constant fear, and she likes it that way. Lolth demands absolute obedience from all drow, and that truly permeates into drow society. Even questioning Lolth would be considered a sin, and get you sent straight to jail. Just kidding. Death. She's just like the baddiest of baddies. Officially, Lolth's domains are war and trickery. Her portfolio includes drow and spiders. Realizing now, I probably should have painted over my eyebrows. If it's not obvious by now, her alignment is chaotic evil. As for her avatars, she loves a good transformation. A good, switcheroo. She typically appears in one of 3 forms. A beautiful drow when she's trying to be persuasive. A giant black widow spider. It's probably when she, means business. Of course, what we most commonly see her depicted as, the half drow, half spider, drider form that she was transformed into. As for her symbols and iconography, her colors are black, red, and purple. Her associated gems and stones are black sapphire, typically with spiders within. Animals are, of course, spiders. And as for monsters, driders are the most commonly associated with Lolth, because like Lolth, driders are transformed either as a punishment or a reward, depending on how you see it. But they're typically people punished by Lolth, like our friend Karness in Baldur's Gate 3. This is looking more like a Spider-Man costume, little by little. Her symbol has evolved a lot over the years, honestly, but one thing remains, and that is the spider motif. She's also associated with Yawgmoths, which are another Tanar'ri demon like her, except lesser. And these monsters were known as the handmaidens of Lolth. They can take a few different forms. They can be like these ooze creatures. They can turn into like a gaseous form. They can be humanoid or just turn into a hot drow. Lolth's worshippers are pretty much drow, as you might expect. It is so hard for me to do eyeliner on camera without, like, completely blocking y'all, so sorry. Life in the Underdark is all about survival of the fittest, and that is literally because of Lolth. Baby, don't even get me started on 𝕵𝖚𝖎𝖕𝖙 𝕬𝖑𝖊𝖗. Don't even do you have another hour? If you wanna live in drow society, you worship Lolth. She got what she wanted, honestly, when it comes to her worshippers. They adore and fear her so much. Like, it is only Lolth. Up in, like, the surface, there's, like, a pantheon of gods. You can worship multiple gods, and, like, it's cool. Not with Lolth. Not with Lolth. Whew, let her find out that you're worshiping somebody else. Oh my god. And with all of this, like, super strict, religious order, she's got a lot of crazy rituals. There's lots of blood sacrifice, elaborate tests of loyalty, priestesses. By the way, I didn't mention, her priestesses and clergy, they can only be women. That's just like drow culture. Women only, ladies only. Sorry, I don't make the rules. But anyway, priestesses have to prove their worthiness to Lolth by surviving either like really extreme situations or being attacked by a giant spider. Like, that is the test of faith, whether or not you can survive being attacked by a giant spider. And it's also really impressive for these, like, priestesses. Like, that's really impressive. I love the drow. Lolth literally, like, weeds out the weak. It is survival of the fittest for her. She does all these tests on purpose so that anybody who isn't super ruthless, they can't represent her. They're not in the clique. It's a game of survival, but it's really a game for Lolth. She truly just likes to be entertained and pit her people against each other. There's this really funny scene in Baldur's Gate 3 where you're talking to, like, one of the giant spiders in the goblin camp, I believe, and you get the option as a Lolth sworn drow to, like, pretend that you're Lolth, right? If you succeed, you know, go on your merry way. But if you fail, it tells you Lolth was listening, and then you get fucked. The spider attacks you. But what's so funny to me is if you succeed, she was still listening no matter what. So she was just like wanting to see what was happening. She heard you impersonating her, and she was like, I want to see what happens here. And then when you, like, fail at doing it, she's like, fuck that. I'm coming after you. Anyway, love Lolth. I really wish there was more Lolth in Baldur's Gate 3. She's such a big goddess. Back to the curriculum. Another big one that takes place monthly, the sacrifice of surface elves takes place on the full moon and is literally a big F you, big ol' insult to 𝕤𝑐𝑖 𝕵𝑚𝑢𝑚𝑏. Yeah. She's so petty. She just, every month, she's like, it's time. We gotta kill an elf. That's what we do. It's the time of the month. Mind you, this is like a public ceremony, a party, if you will. She's so petty. You just have to give it to her, you know? Like, I thought Shar was really petty, but Lolth is something else. Who do you think is pettier, Shar or Lolth? I don't know. Everyday rituals to Lolth include burning precious oils, incense. They burn these offerings into these big old braziers. You can, like, throw in some live offerings, some gems, you know, anything valuable. She wants the good stuff and she knows what's good. So if you throw something in there and she doesn't like it, she will get those flames to burn you. Like, literally that's what happens if you give her an offering that she doesn't approve of. It's all very dramatic, very, very Lolth. As for contacting her directly, good luck. She is a very distant goddess. You can't just, like, run a ritual and expect her to, like, show up. She's got better things to do, apparently. Sometimes the 𝕆𝖑𝖊s will show up in her place and, like, take a message. You've reached Lolth's chaotic customer service line. How can we ruin your day today? As for other places of worship, the noble houses in Drow society all have their own private temples, but every Drow city has at least, like, one big public space for everybody to get together, like, for those full moon rituals, that everyone can use and gather in. It's also not only used for ceremonies or rituals, but like calls to war, you know, the usual. Oh my god, I forgot to consua. Hold on. Hold on, honey. Let me consua. Drow architecture is really cool too. I think we need to do like a drow video on its own. I don't know. What do y'all think? Should we do like drow society, 𝕵𝖚𝖎𝖔𝖎𝖈 drow history? Let me know what you want to hear. As for Lolth's allies and enemies, she doesn't really do allies in the traditional sense. We talked about Saloon last week, and that's a good god. Lolth is not a good god. She has a few like temperamental allies, which include like 𝕮𝖆𝖕𝖕𝖗𝖕, 𝕬𝖆𝖕, 𝕮𝖆𝖕𝖕, but whenever it suits her. She also like she's got a toxic relationship with her family. Like 𝕮𝖆𝖕 is one of her enemies. She hates her. She just hates her daughter. And she's also like she's manipulated Veyron so much that like it's just a weird broken relationship. And of course, she hates the 𝕮𝖎𝖕. She hates her ex-husband, corellon, and 𝕤𝑐𝑖 𝕚𝑚bo, that bitch who got her exiled. It's like just safe to assume that nobody's good with Lolth. There's actually this really cool quote that I found that, here, let me read it for y'all, that kind of just goes to show how Lolth is viewed in the world, and people just fear her. Like, you gotta remember, she's not only this, like, fallen goddess, but she became a literal demon, and then got people to worship her again after that. It's just, like, she is wild. I don't think I mentioned that, by the way. Her fall from grace and, like, getting the drow essentially to follow her, that's a whole thing called, like, the descent of the drow, which is part of drow history. There's lots of, like, different theories and accounts of it, but the general idea is that Lolth, over time, got the dark elves to worship her and brought them down into the Underdark. Okay, where is this quote? Okay, here it is. And so it was that she who had been Araushnee had come to possess everything that she once thought she wanted. Power beyond imagining, a kingdom of her own, gods kneeling before her, mighty creatures trembling at her whims. Entire leagues of fearful creatures trembled before her and hastened to do her bidding. Such good quotes. That is from Evermeet Island of Elves by Elaine Cunningham. Juicy writing, juicy lore. Now, as for some character and roleplay ideas, first and foremost, I would love to hear yours down in the comments below. If you have a character that worships Lolth or you're thinking about making one, let me know what's their story. A few people shared their character stories on my Saloon and Shar video comment section, and I love reading the backstories that you guys have for your characters. I'm obsessed, and it inspires me so much. So please, if you have any, feel free to share in the comments. Okay, anyway, what were we talking about? Character and roleplay ideas. I usually, of course, start with cleric. I feel like that can apply to all of these deities in the Forgotten Realms that we're talking about in these videos. Per like 5th edition, her official domains are war and trickery, as we mentioned. You can absolutely do a paladin as well. That's what Minthara and BG3 is. Oath of Conquest would be the best fit here, because obviously, like, Lolth wants to dominate and take over the world. That's just what she wants. And as a paladin, you're just trying to make sure your goddess gets what she wants, you know? Clocking in. You could also play a warlock with the fiend patron. Let's say you made a dark pact with Lolth. I think there actually might be a D&D book about this too. Like, Lolth is granting them their powers. Now her power flows through you. Maybe you're a drow who, like, sold their soul for power. You're just one of her many pawns, just spreading her arachnid influence. A rogue assassin type would be really perfect too. I also think, like, anything that has to do with, like, poison also would be really cool, is giving your character a background from 𝕵𝖚𝖎𝖕𝖚. Maybe they're a male drow, and they've had a rough time growing up in the Underdark because of the, like, heavily matriarchal society. How do they get to wherever your campaign is taking place, and how is that affecting them now that they are maybe no longer in the Underdark. Maybe your character is part of a noble drow house, like Minthara, Princess Bainray. Oh, love her. That is definitely going to affect the way that they show up in the world. You could do a druid, just like a homebrew class, actually. That's Circle of Spiders. That would be really cool. You can use spiders to spy on people and trap people in webs and stuff. You're like Lolth's eyes and ears and using your spidey senses. You could do an arachnomancer, sorcerer. That would be super cool. That's actually what I'm playing in my current dirge playthrough. She's an arachnomancer. That's a modded in class. But also a war domain cleric. So she could be a priestess of Lolth. Yeah, it's a fun time. If you have done like a dirge run since patch 7 came out, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm so pumped. And lastly, a classic drow ranger, a Gloomstalker would be a perfect fit here. As for role-playing and just exploring and building out a Lolth worshipping character, some really cool things to explore would be the sense of duty your character might have as a Lolth worshipper. It would be interesting to see how adventuring changes your character. Does it change their view of Lolth? Does it just make them, even more fearful and dedicated to Lolth? How does being a Lolth worshipper affect how they view the world and how they interact with others? That can make for some really spicy roleplay. Maybe you're escaping Lolth worship. Maybe you're a male drow escaping the toxic matriarchy of the Underdark. Lots of cool ideas. I would love to hear if you have a Lolth worshipping character or any ideas in general. Put them down in the comments. Lolth stories about ambition, manipulation, and a truly tragic fall from grace. It honestly makes me sad to think how she used to live among such beauty in the Seldarine and is now considered one of the most dangerous deities in D&D. I personally love such an in-depth backstory as to how she became who she is. I love villains that have a motive that is more than just bloodlust, Lolth is just my queen. I don't know, she's toxic, but I can't get her out of my head. This is the ultimate toxic relationship. Let me know what you'd like to hear next, whether it's a D&D deity or some part of D&D lore. Either way, whatever we cover, it's going to be full of looks and juicy lore. I hope you slay your day, and bye! Ciao! See my little spider nails? I painted them myself. Ah!